نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, inshallah, it is the right of this gathering to commence with the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah to follow, inshallah, to film recite and honor a short recitation, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب إن كل نفس لما عليها حافظ فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب إنه على رجعه لقادر يوم تبلى السرائر فما له من قوة ولا ناصر والسماء ذات الرجع والأرض ذات الصدع إنه لقول فصل وما هو بالهزل إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا صدق الله العظيم.
For New York University, he's the executive director of the Science New York University and chaplain for the NYPD. And he's also a co-founder of Honest Shops, the first ever all-natural organic butcher in New York City, and many other organizations affiliated with each other. He was appointed as the first Muslim chaplain in New York University in 2005, and he was also appointed the first Muslim chaplain at Princeton in 2006. With that, under his leadership, the South New York University became the first ever established Muslim student center and institution of higher education in the United States. Imam Latif was also nominated in 2007 by Mayor Michael Hoover as the youngest chaplain for in the history of the New York Police Department at the young age of 24. His very well traveled as well, and he has contact for our city before as well. And without further ado, Imam will address us in terms of the next topic of Islamophobia. Jazakumullah khair.
Sure. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, and His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the Master of the Day of Judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who refused to tread in his path until the last day. It is said that on one occasion, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu saw Khabab ibn Arad radiallahu anhu, and he had nothing on him in terms of clothing. This man, Khalid ibn Arad radiallahu anhu, he was seen bareback by Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and his back was covered with blisters and scars. And Umar radiallahu anhu asked him, Ya Khalid, what happened? And he said that in the early days of Islam, when the Meccans would persecute us greatly, they used to force me to stay bareback above a bed of flaming coals. And I was made to stay there until the blood from my back extinguished the flames. And these are how these scars come to me. And this man, Khalid ibn Arad, sometime later, he is saying to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on a different occasion, Ya Rasulullah, why don't you make dua for us? Why don't you make dua for us? Why don't you ask Allah to give us victory, to make things easy for us? And he's not saying it because the difficulty he has or the difficulties that we have. But this was a man whose difficulty was such that they would put him upon a bed of flaming coals and make him stay there till his bloody back extinguished the flames. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Ya Khabab, don't say such things. Ya Khabab, don't say such things because there were those who came before you who had to endure much worse, and they did so without any question. Now for me, growing up, when I was taught this hadith, it was taught to me in such a way that said, don't complain, don't question Allah's plan. You have no room to be in a place where you voice frustration or emotional agitation. All you have to do is just be silent in any type of hardship. But that doesn't make sense to me. When I read the Quran and I read about Allah as being Rahman and Rahim, that He is Rahman, His mercy is so emphatic that it just embodies Him as a characteristic more than anything at that time. The way that we would say when you don't do what you're supposed to, you are kaslan, you are lazy, that laziness is you. Or I am so tired and exhausted I can't do anything. I say that I am ta'ban, that I am just exhaustion, that is me. Or if I have not eaten for such a long time and I have such hunger in my stomach, I say that I am ja'an, that hunger is all that I am. Rahman follows in the same form. That Allah is just merciful. That is who He is. That He is Rahim, that there is continuity to His mercy. It never stops, it keeps going. He is Latif, He is gentle, He is kind, He is Wadud, the source of an unconditional love. That He does not love us because we come from a certain culture or country or a certain class. But He just loves us because He loves us. He is Wadud. And when I would read the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and I would hear of him being sent to this world as a rahmah for all of the world. It didn't make sense to me that people would teach me this hadith and make it seem as if when somebody who was beloved to the Prophet, his companion, came to him in a moment of need and struggle, the Prophet was essentially saying to him, be quiet, don't say anything like this. That's not what he was saying. That perspective was not of Rahmatan lil Alameen, the people who were just claiming to speak on his behalf. When we look at it through the framework of compassion, love, and mercy, rahmah, mawaddah, what else would the Prophet tell his companion in that moment? That you're right, Ya Khabab, we can't have anything against what's in front of us of hardship. That you're right, Khabab, there's nothing that you and I can do to take on these challenges, these trials and tribulations. We don't have what it takes. Or is he going to say to his companion, no, Khabab, be patient. Even if today is difficult, tomorrow will be better. Even if we face hardship today, just understand that today's difficulty will render tomorrow's ease. Because Allah's promise is true. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. That indeed with hardship there is relief. Indeed with hardship there is relief. He says it twice emphatically, in case you missed it the first time. The challenge for you and I when we become stuck in this place where the news that we hear doesn't seem like it's new news or old news and you can't tell if it's a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, where perspectives are imposed upon us, individuals from miles away can undertake actions in their own isolation, but they then cast a stereotype upon all of us as Muslims everywhere. That you are violent, you are a terrorist, you oppress your women, you are backwards, you are stuck 500 miles away or 500 years in the past. You got to believe at the onset of taking on these types of realities that hope does not have to be something fleeting. But it is not about whether we are losing or they are winning or thinking in those parameters. Because the win and loss is not in terms of things of this world. But you affirm for yourself a certain air of hope in the fact that somebody might gain in terms of this world and we might lose in terms of this dunya. Ultimately, Allah cannot lose. And what it means to have success and what it means to gain has to be understood in a much bigger way. When we deal with anti-Muslim sentiment, we deal with Islamophobia, there's a lot of different frames that we can look at this in. But I want us to think about it in terms of how we build strength. And to parallel it to what our Prophet ﷺ faced in his time. 23 years of revelation did not start with year one being filled with ease. But the Prophet saw his companions be beaten, boycotted, abused, and even killed for believing what it was that he was calling them towards. The likes of Bilal ibn Rabah literally tied up and dragged through the streets of Mecca. Boulders put upon his chest until he would recant the idea of Tawheed and all he would say is Ahad, the one. But the Prophet saw it taking place in front of his eyes. He saw what was happening and he had to make sense of how he could change what was in front of him. And so what the Prophet did was look at times and places that you and I are not so easy to look into. Because we set standards for who it is that we let speak on behalf of this deen. People who we let work on behalf of community. People who would be fit to lead in our standards and perspectives. That the Prophet ﷺ did not act in that way. When they found themselves in a place where they needed strength, the Prophet would make dua. Allahumma izza al-Islam bi'amr rajulayn ilayk, Amr ibn Hisham and Amr ibn al-Khattab. That, oh Allah, bring izzah to Islam, bring strength to Islam, but izzah is a strength that is rooted in dignity. It's not quwwah, it's not strength or power in that sense. And he said, bring that type of strength, that izzah to Islam. There's cognates in Indian Urdu. Give us izzat, Ya Rab. To the one of the two men who is more beloved to you, Amr ibn Hisham, who we know as Abu Jahl, or Amr ibn al-Khattab, who we know at this juncture as a man who was amazing for what he achieved. But at that time, nobody thought there was anything good. Before he became Muslim, Umar was one of the staunchest opponents of the Muslim community. This is a man who he says in his own narration that he used to drink alcohol a lot. A man who says that he remembers a moment from the days before
and one that made him cry. In the instance that brought a smile to his face, he said that he was going on a journey and he had forgotten his traveling idol at home, and so as he set forth, he fashioned an idol out of dates that he was carrying with him. And when his stomach started to feel hungry and he needed to eat, he started to eat the idol, that which he was worshiping. And he says, when I think about that, it makes me laugh. And the instance that brings tears to his eyes, customary at that time, was people wanted to have sons, they didn't want to have daughters. And so when a daughter was born, they would literally bury them alive in the ground. And Umar says that I could feel my own daughter's hand go limp in my hand as I buried her in the earth. Then in some narrations, he felt her hand whisk against the bottom of his beard, and he says, when I remember that, it brings tears to my eyes. That Umar used to have in his servitude a woman by the name of Lubayna. Lubayna was Umar radiallahu anhu's servant, and he used to beat this woman so hard that when he would stop, he would say, don't think I have sympathy for you. I'm just tired. When I get my strength back, I'm going to continue. This is the kind of man Umar was before he became Muslim. Nobody saw goodness in him. On one occasion, he sees a woman by the name of Layla, and Layla looks as if she's going on a journey. And Umar radiallahu anhu asks her, what are you doing? And she says, you have made it very hard for me to worship my God here. I'm going elsewhere so I can worship him. And she expects now an onslaught at the hands of this man who drinks alcohol a lot, who beats Muslim women, who buried his own daughter alive in the ground. To her astonishment, he says, go and have peace on your journey. She goes back to her home and she tells her husband, a man by the name of Imam. And Imam says, what are you saying? You sound as if you believe Umar radiallahu anhu could actually become Muslim. She says, why couldn't he become Muslim? And Imam says, know this, the donkey of Umar's father will become Muslim before he does. Nobody thought there was anything good in Umar bin al-Khattab except our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose husn was such that he did not just do beautiful things, but that beauty allowed for him to see beauty in those that nobody could see beauty in. When he makes that dua to bring izzah to Islam by the one of the two men who is more beloved to you, asking of Allah, embedded within that dua is the fact that Allah loves Umar. When Umar radiallahu anhu becomes Muslim, the situation changes drastically. He goes and he knocks on the door of Abu Jahl. And Abu Jahl is excited. Here is his champion. And he says, Marhaba ya Umar. And Umar says, Aslamtu, I've become Muslim. And he says, La taf'al, don't do it. And he says, Fa'altu, it's done. And then there's nothing to say. What are you going to say to Umar ibn al-Khattab? For the first time, the Muslims could walk in the streets without any fear of persecution. They line up in two rows. Umar radiallahu anhu leading one line, Hamza radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who days earlier had become Muslim, leading the other line, the Prophet walking in the middle of them. Nobody could do anything to them. It was under this man that the Muslim empire grew drastically under his caliphate. It was of this man that our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had said, لو كان النبي بعدي لكان عمر, that if there was a prophet after me, it would be this man Umar. What was he before he was what he was? And just think about this. What would you do if somebody walked into this masjid who had a problem drinking, who didn't dress the way that you thought they should dress, who were not of the dominant culture, race, ethnicity, or class? Our challenge is twofold. One, we are pushing away a lot of Umars. Allah forgive us for it. Because we have an expectation that somehow or somewhere that only those who fit into a certain mold are entitled to have access to this deen. And what we end up preventing is not just
Imam did not become Muslim, where would you and I be? What if he, every person who told him that he was not bigger than the worst of his actions, where would we be? And it's not meant to be self-deprecating, but introspective. How many hearts have we pushed away? Because they don't speak the same language. They're not of the same culture as us. We would never let our children even think about being married to them because they come from a different town, let alone a different nation. And if you don't see the connection, you're not looking from your heart. How we end up where we are is not just a product of certain things external. Definitely they are, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but there's also a lot internal that we have to deal with. And then the second frame, beyond how many Umars do we push away? You have to think about when it's something that's imperative for us to reflect upon. But religious scholarship does not equate to ultimate leadership. It's to be able to understand that as much as we need our shuyukh and our scholars, so too we need our brothers and sisters who understand graphic design to do that for the sake of God, who understand finance and accounting and bookkeeping, who are doctors and lawyers and engineers, people who work in mental health, people who work in social services, people who work in the arts, people who work as entrepreneurs and in every kind of industry to utilize their skills and their talents to move forward and build what it is that we need to build. That's why we have to stop pushing away at every owner that walks into the space, that walks into the community, to only set standards and parameters that say that if you fall into these criteria, then you must be somebody whose voice is what we must listen to. We had somebody come and sit down with one of my teachers and ask him a perspective on a design for a brand. The Sheikh says to him, "Why are you asking me this question? I studied Islamic legal theory for 13 years in my life. I don't know anything about design." The Prophet ﷺ was asked by his companions when they should plant their crop. And the Prophet gives them advice, and then nothing is yielded in terms of harvest. And they go back to him and say, "Why did you tell us to plant in this way?" And he says to them, "Why did you ask me? I'm not a farmer." The assessment of where we land necessitates us understanding strategically that we have access to so much talent. We have access to so much wealth. We have access to so many resources. But we literally are more segmented and divided than we want to let ourselves believe. Islamophobia exists. Anti-Muslim sentiment exists. May Allah make it easy for all of us. The solution is not for us to turn in, but to think much bigger. Well, how do we move forward? Because our Prophet told us that this deen would start as something that is strange and it would end as something that is strange, and he gave rejoicing and blessing to the strangers. But for me to be able to move forward necessitates me understanding how it is that I build what it is that I need to build. We sit in a house of God. The purpose of a house of God is to draw attention to God, not the house. And if it's really about God, then anybody is entitled to have access to God. Our La ilaha illallah is the biggest catalyst for us combating this. And I know for a fact that in this country of Canada, there's a lot more Muslims than just people who come from the Indian subcontinent. I know for a fact, because I've met them and seen them, that there are Muslims that come from every culture and every race and every ethnicity. But again, not to be self-deprecating, to be introspective and reflective. Who fills the ranks? Who fills the rows? And is the commonality a shared La ilaha illallah that connects hearts to hearts? Or is it a shared culture, a shared language, a shared shared level of spice and food, how we dress, what our customs are, what is normative in that frame that is shared external and not internal. Those who are anti-Muslim, who are pretty much anti-everything other than themselves, realize that we are not together in the ways that we could be. Where the Prophet had companions like Umar and Uthman and Ali, may Allah be pleased with them. So too he had companions of the like of Bilal ibn Rabah, and Khabab ibn Arat, and Suhaib al-Rumi, and Salman al-Farsi, and Abu Dhar of the Ghaffar tribe, people who were not of the Quraysh. Some were black, some were white, some were Persian. One of the most interesting people in the Prophet ﷺ's history is a woman by the name of Ayman Baraka, who was arguably the only companion of the Prophet of God who is with him from the time he was born until the time he passes away. She's taken into the household of Abdullah, the Prophet ﷺ's father, as a servant when she's 16 years old. She's an Abyssinian woman, a black woman, someone who nursed the Prophet, who the likes of Abu Bakr and Umar would go and visit after the Prophet's passing. When they remembered the Prophet of God, they would go to be with Ayman Baraka. But if you lined up your friends and your companions, the people who sit across your dinner table from you, are their faces just like yours? At your weddings, your festivities, your holiday celebrations, are they people who come just from the same background as you? And until that changes, there's going to always be people who can take advantage of the fact that we are not together. Organized evil will always triumph over disorganized righteousness. This is truth, whether we want to accept it or not. To recognize the challenges of the country that you are in, it's not that different from my country. The aspiration that people had when they came to the United States was to build a land of immigrants. The spaces that they left from, the European context, was not one that had that aspiration. And where much of Europe was in a space where it was engaging in religion and spirituality in certain ways, and it moved forward in certain ways, where literal wars and battles, crusades were launched in the name of religion. Religion was used to justify a transatlantic slave trade. And they started to push back and embrace the secular and embrace liberalism and say that maybe religion is the problem. In the United States, where I come from, the bloodiest wars in that country were not fought over religion, but they were fought over race, a person's skin color. The foundation of documents afforded entire privilege to white men. Women were given no rights, and black men and women weren't even considered an entire person, in contrast to their white counterparts. And that same fight fights itself today. And it's not that it came into your country from my country, because your country had its own issues tied to the true native people of these lands, tied to minority populations in these lands. And if you don't understand that anti-Muslim sentiment is just symptomatic of a deeper entrenched racism that exists on a systemic and structural level, that at times imposes upon us as brown people. I am from Pakistan. My father grew up in Lahore and Guwahati. We're from Kashmir. My grandfather grew up in Srinagar and after partition went to Lahore. My mother grew up in Peshawar. I have family all over Pakistan and India. May Allah make things easy for the people of Kashmir, as well as the entire Indian subcontinent. The understanding has to be such that the aspiration that drew many from those places to these places was what? The same thing that drew people from everywhere around the world to these places. One of my teachers, his older brother, he said the motivation of that generation was what? And how did it impact the generation that came after? He said कि हम आए थे यहाँ पे सोना ढूंढने के लिए और रास्ते में हमारे हीरे खो गए. That we came here in the search of gold, and in the process we lost our diamonds. But the process through which diamonds are being lost are not the conversations that we have, because we're thinking about them at a very simplistic level, and not how things external impose mindsets upon us, and how it is that it renders what it is that we see today. I teach at a university. Most of my students who are Muslim are studying to be doctors and engineers, even though they will never be doctors and engineers. But their parents want them to be doctors and engineers, and when they get frustrated and they say to me, why? I say, do you know why? Not to justify it, but to give them an understanding of where it comes from. They say, no, I don't get it. I said, very likely your family at some point lived under British colonization. The reality of a colonized mind in comparison to a colonized body is what you want to think about. And in those lands where colonization was there, and you had these white men who told these brown men and brown women how to live, how to dress, what their haircuts should be like, what their mustaches should look like, what direction it should be parted in. One of the few professions that you could take on where you didn't have to answer to somebody else to tell you what your life should be like was if you were a doctor. And if you became a doctor, you could break out of the shackles of that racist, imperialistic system that was colonization. And if you can understand how it imposes itself upon people that come from many of the countries that you came from, that's what happens to black people in these countries. It's the same notion, the same inequity, the same racism, the same arrogance. And then the synergies start to impose themselves on systemic and structural levels and impact us as Muslims who live in these places. So it's not just day-to-day interaction that brings us to a place where someone looks at us the wrong way or calls us a bad name. That's not what I'm talking about. Although this as itself. I'll give you an example of what it is that I don't mean. I took 20 of my students to have lunch with me one day in Manhattan, New York, where we are, at a street cart. I don't know if you have those here. It's a guy selling halal chicken and rice. And while we're waiting for our food, this middle-aged Caucasian woman is standing behind us, and she starts to push herself through the group, saying, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, can't you understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to order my food. And then when she gets to the front of the line, she looks at me face to face and she says, oh, I guess you can't understand what I'm saying. How do they say, excuse me, where you come from? I said, we say, excuse me. And she said, no, the place where your family is from. How do they say, excuse me, there? I said, my family lives in New Jersey, and we say, excuse me. She couldn't understand how somebody that looks like this is actually from the same place that she's from. And that's problematic in and of itself. But now when that mindset takes itself to a level where it sits at a table and it concocts policy that impacts the way minority populations live in your country or my country, without those minorities actually being present and just stereotypes of them, you see the kind of things that take place. Like shootings in Quebec, where people kill innocent people. But when you engage government and say, well, how will you protect us? They basically say, we're not going to do anything for you. It gives you reality on systemic levels of what power really means, what Izzah really means. And if people won't build for you, that you have to build it for yourself. But it's hard to do that when you push away the Omars. And that's why where we start is important. Because if we continue in that way, we're not going to end where it is that we want to.
That system is something you want to get. I'll give you an example of what I mean. I work as a chaplain for the New York City Police Department. I'm an inspector by rank. It's a very high rank, one rank below a one-star chief in this very military-esque institution that is the NYPD. And one of the things that we do as police chaplains every year is go down to the Ground Zero Memorial Service on September 11th. We start out by having breakfast with family members who lost loved ones on 9/11 at police headquarters. We then take a bus down to the Ground Zero site and participate in the memorial service. The current memorial structure, when it was being built, had the actual service a little bit more closed off. And on the 9th anniversary of the attacks, it was one of those years that was a little bit more closed off. And the Vice President of the United States at that time, Joe Biden, was there. They had a stage where the ceremony took place. In front of the stage, there was an area for VIPs, city officials, family members. Behind them, a press pit for the media to come and watch. And behind them, an area for the public to come and view. So I'm wearing my police uniform, an inspector's uniform. I still have my beard. I still have my head covered. I'm talking to people as we're waiting for things to get started. 3 men wearing suits come and approach me, and they say that Secret Service has spotted you from the top of a building, and they want us to check your credentials just in case. I said, just in case what? And they said, we're sorry that we're doing this to you. I said, then why are you doing it? And to understand what they question in that moment is not merely my physical presence tied to that location, but the entire validity of my emotion tied to that space. I was an undergrad at New York University on September 1000 of my classmates in the middle of our campus in a park called Washington Square as we watched this in 2001. I stood with about 2 of the towers. We had no established Islamic center. We had no Muslim chaplain. And we had to figure out how to deal with things on our own. There was a lot of hate. There was a lot of backlash. The very next day, a young woman tried to push me down the staircase. Media from everywhere wanted us to be the answer to what Muslims were thinking at that time because we were arguably the closest Muslim group to the Ground Zero site. I went to numerous funerals for people of our faith and other walks of life who died on that day. And so much of the work that I do until today is informed by the atrocities of that day. And in that moment, those men are questioning the validity of all of it. And the frustrating thing isn't that I'm going through it, but what can I really do about it? That if I was to say anything in response, it would make the situation much worse for me. And so where I couldn't speak, and there was literally hundreds of people watching, and they said nothing. There was a mother that was standing next to me who lost her son on September 11th. And she said to those men, what you are doing right now is more dishonoring to the memory of our loved ones that we lost on that day than anything else. That here this young man is standing with us in our moment of need, and you're making it seem as if he's doing something wrong just because he's Muslim. And as easily as they had taken the validation away, she brought it right back. What I want you to be able to understand primarily is that somebody sitting somewhere concocted a policy that trickled down to those men that said, if you see somebody that looks like this, look at them again. I'm in a police uniform, man, an inspector's uniform. And even if I wasn't, it still wouldn't be okay. The reality that numerous minority populations face day to day in your country and mine might be something that we're not aware of, but doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And the Islamophobia that exists, again, is just indicative of a much deeper racism that exists. And if we weren't aware of it before, we need to be aware of it now. And I say this to you as somebody who I've sat on stages and spoken side by side with people like Pope Francis and the Dalai Lama. I've met with various heads of states and dignitaries in my country and when I visit their countries. interviewed by every media outlet that you could think of. I've been on the cover of Newsweek magazine. I've been on Stephen Colbert. I've been interviewed by Katie Couric a bunch of times. I've still had the FBI in my house on a bunch of occasions. And when I've asked them, what is it that you want from me? They say, you're just too good to be true. Know that we're watching you. Getting on and off of planes is not a fun experience. And when people there, I ask them, after they get frustrated because they see my police credentials, if I'm traveling on behalf of the government, that I have a passport of the country that I'm traveling on behalf of, and they see golden eagles embossed on big folders that carry my governmental credentials, and they say, why are we stopping you? And I say to them, why do you think you're stopping me? And they say, you're young and you're male and you're Muslim. Those things don't go so well together right now. The realities of being detained, profiled, and surveilled, I can tell you in detail. But I could also tell you, despite going through all of those things, I still couldn't say what it's like to be a black person living in these lands. And you have to understand that in order to overcome Islamophobia. If you don't see the connection, just trust me as your brother that loves you, it's there. To get a deeper understanding of it, there's a couple of things that you can watch and read. If you're really serious as a community and institution about countering Islamophobia. There's a book written by a professor named Michelle Alexander that is called The New Jim Crow. You want to read it. There's a documentary that's called 13th that you can find on Netflix. You want to watch it. There's another documentary that is called I Am Not Your Negro that you can also find online. You want to watch it. The relationship between The New Jim Crow and 13th is pretty much that the movie is a film adaptation of the book. And what it talks about is mass incarceration of African Americans and how it spikes, where many innocent black people are just thrown into the prison system. But politicians start talking about a war on drugs. They start talking about how crack is going into these neighborhoods. Nobody asks where the crack came from, but they just talk about black people as predators and thugs. TV shows like Cops start appearing on television. Where on live TV, officers literally arrest black men for the whole nation to watch, and stereotypes get reinforced. And as that happens, the country is silent, as many black men are unjustly thrown into the prison system. And that relationship between media and politics, you want to understand, because the war on terror builds itself out in the same exact way. They tell people to be afraid of immigrants. You have politicians who say the same thing. They tell people to fear Islam. They talk about radical Islam, and they talk about Islamism, and they talk about Islamic terrorism. Politicians in your country, they might not have won, but they still ran campaigns on the same platforms. And many people followed behind them. And Hollywood just builds it out. Jack Bauer, who is the hero of 24, a TV show that's just about Muslims blowing things up, was introduced on television as a character 2 months after September 11th. You could try and believe that that was because people had a keen interest for emotional healing of the United States. But very likely it was because people just wanted to make money off of people's misery. And they knew what people would watch. And the viewers would then generate more ad revenue. And it's disgusting. But that's what happens when you make decisions based off of money and wealth, which many of us also do. Despite our Prophet saying, لَيْسَ الْغِنَى كَثْرَةُ الْعَرَضِ وَلَكِنَّ الْغِنَى غِنَى النَّفْسِ. That true richness is not having an abundance of things of the earth, but true richness is having a richness of your soul. What is happening to us is not the same thing as what happens to black people. But because of what has happened to black people, and we don't talk to black people, and we don't eat with them, and we would definitely not let our children marry them, those unjust and inequitous systems exist in such a way that it allows for you to be mistreated today. Now, if anyone was to ask me if I was to go through it all over again, I would say definitely I would. Because if my standing in places where I'm the only one that looks like me, thinks like me, believes what I believe is going to bring understanding, then I'm going to continue to do it. For certain battles to be won, those battles have to take place in the first place. You might be the only one that is standing when everyone else is sitting. You might be the only one that is speaking when everyone else is silent. But just because no one else does it, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. And you might be what ignites what it is that we need. Try to understand the purpose of religion. Our purpose is not prayer for the sake of prayer. It's not fasting for the sake of fasting. It's not reading Quran for the sake of reading Quran. Our Prophet ﷺ did not embody goodness and benefit and had an alternate vision of what life should be in comparison to the Meccan lifestyle so that he would just behave and be good in an inequitous Meccan system. But he lived his Islam in a way that wasn't about fitting into something that was wrong. He lived in Islam in such a way that he made right what was wrong. Do you understand? Your deen has to be something that is a means to something. And if it's not a means to Allah, it's just a means to shared culture, shared community, increased wealth, whatever it is, then that's what it is. But if it's in pursuit of just doing what the divine wants you to do, it's not that you go on the street and start screaming, but you sit down here and you strategize and you think with real depth what you will build, how you will utilize the beautiful space you have been given to mobilize and create what you have the ability to create. And in pursuit of what as an ends? When you think of a good person, a person who really gets it, who sees this world not just with eyes but with a heart. Don't think of somebody wretched like me, but think of that woman, that mother, who stood up in my defense when so many others were standing there and they could have done it, but they simply did not. But she did it because she knew it was the right thing to do. She leveraged her power and her privilege for someone who is underserved and underprivileged. Because who in their right mind is going to say something to a mother who lost her son on September 11th while she's standing at the ground zero site on September 11th? Nobody. And she knew that, and she recognized it, and she used that for the sake of doing good just because it was the right thing to do. That's the kind of aspiration we want to lend ourselves towards. In the legacy that is of our Prophet ﷺ, who always thought of others before he thought of himself, who just gave and gave and gave. On one occasion, a gift of a goat comes to the home of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's a gift, it's not a sadaqah, it's not zakah. He can take from it, he can indulge in whatever he wants. But rather than taking of it, he starts to distribute its meat to his companions who are more in need, until none of it is left but his shoulder. And his wife Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha comments on this and says, none of it is there for us but its shoulder. To understand the magnitude of this, you can't look at hadith in isolation of each other, but you have to understand that this beautiful man lived an entire life. We have narrations in our tradition that tell us days would go by without a fire being lit in the home of the Prophet, because he had no food to cook on the fire. We have narrations that tell us that he would strap rocks to his waist at times to balance himself out from the weight loss he sustained from not eating so much. Now when food comes and he can take whatever he wants, he just gives rather than taking it for himself. When his beloved radiallahu ta'ala anha says that none of it is there for us but its shoulder, our Prophet does not see the world in this way. He doesn't see what it is that he has lost but what others will gain. He doesn't see where he will feel detriment but where others will benefit. When his wife says that all of it is gone but its shoulder, his response to her is, Ya Aisha, all of it is there for us but its shoulder. How do you live and build that kind of heart for yourself? How do you understand your individual role and how it plays into a communal role in combating some of these racial inequities? First, you have to affirm that racism in all of its forms is haram, it's wrong. Iblis, Shaitan, was the first racist. May Allah protect us from his whispers. Literally, he is told to prostrate to Adam, and he says, I am of fire, he is of dirt. Why would I do that? But he believes because he is from a certain place, that makes him better from somebody who is of a different place. I'm not saying that you have to change who you are. If anything, you got to stay truer to who it is that you are. But you know that you are actually concrete in your belief. Not when you are surrounded by 100 people who believe the same thing and then you believe. But when you can be you, when no one else around you is like you, then you know you actually believe in the values that you claim to believe in. As a starting point, in my opinion, is you just start spending time with people who are different from you. And you just think about it, really think about it. There are Muslims in this country who are Arab. There are Muslims in this country who are Somali. There are Muslims in this country who are refugees of every background. There are Muslims in this country who come from all walks of life. Will you break fast with them during Ramadan? Will you celebrate your Eid holiday with them at the end of the month? The Arabic language is so rich, it is so deep. And the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that the parable of believers in their love, mercy, and compassion, their mawadda, their rahmah, their usfa, is that they are like a body. And then when that body has a limb that is afflicted in some way, the entire body feels fever and sleeplessness. Does your heart hurt when you hear about somebody of a different culture or race being oppressed? Do you have to see the image of young Syrian men and women being pulled from the rubble of their homes with trauma engrossed in their eyes and blood soaked on their face to think about what it is that's happening there? Have you ever thought about the people who are struck by famine? 20 million right now in East Africa and Yemen. May Allah make things easy for them. And many of them will still fast Ramadan, if you can imagine. Have you heard about what's happening to our brothers and sisters in Burma? Modern day concentration camps. I had a young woman who came to our center and she cried hearing the Quran during Ramadan. And I said to her, why are you crying the way you're crying? And she said, in my village in Burma, we don't have Salatul Taraweeh this way because they came and they burned alive all of the Hufaz. Does your heart hurt the way your body should hurt? As the Prophet has described the love, mercy, and compassion we are meant to have together as believing men and women? Or is it justifiable? Is it something that you can validate? And when we come together in all of our numbers, you will see that it is not that we are weak, but we are stronger than strong. Where the society tries to push down and it tells you to not think or act a certain way, you will say that no, I am on a path Its end is not this world, but a world that is much bigger than it. That its end is not this world or even that world, but just the creator of both of these worlds. In Arabic, you have a lot of words for love. Mawadda is love, ishq is love, and hub is love. And the way the Arabic language is structured is that words share trilateral roots. They have meanings that are similar. So Muslim, Islam, Salam has the root salama. There's a commonality there. So the word hub, muhabba, it shares the same root as the word for seed, habba. And the relationship between love and a seed, hub and a hub, is that you can take that love from your heart and plant it in as many hearts as you want. But for it to grow anything, you can't just throw a seed in the dirt and expect that it'll rear you something. It needs attention and nurture and cultivation. And the beauty of a seed is that it's going to always give you more than a seed back when you take care of it. How can you love somebody if you don't spend time with them? And if you have to think about it in terms of your own self, our Prophet tells us that you will not enter paradise until you believe, and you will not believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. And by extension, your sister. It doesn't say your Pakistani brother, or your Bengali brother, or your Gujarati brother, or your Indian brother. It just says brother. And Imam Nawawi, rahimahullah, when he makes commentary on this hadith, he says that the word brother isn't even in reference to your brother in faith, it's your brother in humanity. So it's not even about the other's sake, it's about your sake. Take the challenge this Ramadan and invite somebody to your iftar that you know no one else would expect you to. That they come into your home and people will say, you invited this person to your house? You'll say, yes, I invited this person to my house. Why would I not invite this person to my house? Because they don't have the same culture as us? Because they're not of the same race as us? Because they don't come from the same level of wealth as us? Even they're not Muslim like us? You start to sow real love in the depth of your institutions. You make the systemic hate and structural racism with institutionalized love and systemic mercy and compassion. You think about how it is that you grow and build, and you have strategy to go and do it. You know how we will combat Islamophobia? When our communities build the masjid, and we build the madrasa, and we build the school, and then we build the domestic violence shelter, and we build the free health clinic, and we build the legal services, and we build the orphanages, and we build the food pantries, and we build the soup kitchens. And not because we're trying to launch a PR campaign or prove that Islam is great. Because even if everyone continues to hate us, we will still do right because it's the right thing to do. We will still do good because that's what we're supposed to do. Because our pursuit is not just in terms of this world. It's pursuit of a world that's much bigger than this. People are scared. It's okay to be scared. If people are afraid, it's okay to be afraid. That's why you have to build that much more love and compassion into your communities. There are many Muslims right now who don't go to masjids, not because they don't pray or they don't fast, it's because they don't feel as if the masjid understands them. They don't feel as if they could walk in and they'd have a place to speak to anybody. That they would be looked up and down and they would be made to feel as if they don't have a place to belong. And if they're told they don't belong there and they're made to feel they don't belong here, where are they going to go? Then don't be surprised if they turn to drugs and they turn to alcohol and they turn to zina. It's not because they're bad, but very likely it's because we're not supporting them in the ways that we need to. And that pain that they feel inside, in the absence of real understanding, they're trying to fill in whatever ways that they can. Where I can be helpful to you in any of the work that you have going on, please let me know. And beyond talking to people, inviting people, building things that you have the ability to build, I would say just start telling stories of hope, stories of success. There are a lot of amazing things that happen in the Muslim community, a lot of remarkable things that take place. On the minbar, start to share those stories. Give our young people a sense of aspiration. Don't bring them in only to talk about what's the problem with the youth, but give them an understanding of where Deen can encourage empowerment and success. And it happens. Talk to them about Ibtihaj Muhammad. Talk to them about Linda Sarsour. Talk to them about Islamic Relief. Talk to them about the Reviving the Islamic Spirit Conference. Talk to them about scholars and shuyukh who are out there living their Islam. They're living their faith. They live Imam. They live Ihsan. They live the Quran. They live truth, justice. They live hope. They live mercy. As opposed to it always just being the same stuff. It becomes disenchanting and hard to connect to. We'll find ourselves weathered through this. And I'm going to end with this. Why you want to talk to people who are from different races is because they've already gone through it. If South Asian Muslims and Arab Muslims talk to Black Muslims in the country I came from, we wouldn't find ourselves in the positions we find ourselves in. Islam has been with Black people in the United States for centuries. They came against their will as slaves. Their slave masters beat them, whipped them, tortured them, would try to take away their names, humiliate them by having them walk around with no clothes on, eat food only after animals had eaten, and then they would eat the leftovers of animals' foods, call them things like boy to get into their psyche. But they did not lose their Islam. They still held onto it. And there's still a thriving, successful Black Muslim community in the United States despite going through that. When government did not provide them with security, they built their own security. When government tried to push them down, they would not go down. And you know as well as I do that not all of us, but some of us tell our young people, don't let people know that you're Muslim. Change your name on your resume. Don't go out dressed like that. Maybe you shouldn't wear a hijab. If you sat down with people who are your brothers and sisters and just said to them, you could teach us something. We could learn from you. How did you get through this? But you just have to be willing to accept the fact that they have something to teach you. And to be separate is not going to ever be as strong as when you're together. So the time for the Pakistani masjid and Bengali masjid and Indian masjid and African masjid and Somali masjid, it's not gone. That's not what I'm saying. But if you have it, it doesn't mean that you still can't come together, both in it and outside of it. It just takes a few people to take those steps. And you just do it because you know that's what's going to be pleasing to Allah. And you start to counter that hate that's projected against us with real love in systemic and strategic ways. And we'll see that it'll make all of the difference. So again, if I can ever be helpful to any of you in whatever it is you have going on, please don't hesitate in reaching out. And if this is the only time that we are meant to be together, then I pray, inshallah ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal gathers us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. But please keep me in your dua. You will be in mine. May Allah give to us only the best in this world and the best in the next. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa billahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan, Khalid, for that beautiful talk. I think it's going to hear them online, inshallah. So we'd love to have him after Maghrib as well, but of course, Imam has to leave and he's tired, he's traveling as well. First of all, thankful to Islamic Relief for arranging this tour for Imam Latif to come to Southern Ontario. Inshallah, we hope that we can work together and bring him again, inshallah, in the future. Before I wrap this up, inshallah ta'ala, I want to take a few minutes for questions. If you have any questions, we'll just open the floor here for the brothers and sisters want to have any questions. They can text the number that they see here. I think you have a number in the conference room as well. In the meantime, if any brothers have a question, we'll take a few minutes for questions. Please go ahead, inshallah. Raise your hands. After that, inshallah, we'll just open the floor. We just keep it in Imam Khalid, walk around, and if you'd like to personally speak with him as well, the sisters will have an opportunity, inshallah, as well. So please, inshallah, questions. Go ahead. Come on, Trevor, we're going to represent, inshallah. Go ahead.
Sorry? I only live in Manhattan. It's about an hour flight from here. But flying back into the United States takes a pretty long time. I get detained for a while. So I'd be happy to come whenever, inshallah. But, there's things I can be helpful with. Please let me know. Yeah. That's enough. Ramadan, I think, is an individual obligation for a variety of reasons, but to be able to ready yourself for it, I think, necessitates understanding what it is that Ramadan is about. Right? We're part of the tradition, and the verse that mandates Ramadan or is utilized as the evidence for it, it gives us that as an indication. Right? يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. That, oh, you who believe, fasting has been written for you as it was written for those who came before you. Meaning that it's something that's been happening for a while, right? It's not just something that was invented today. And then it gives you a reason that, so potentially you might obtain taqwa. So there's two things that we want to understand, like things that we have access to in our tradition are time-tested rituals that serve as a means to real spiritual ascension. Now, if your fast is something that you think about, it's really easy to fast. And a lot of people fast who don't even pray. This is a very passive act. You can literally sit in your room and not eat or drink anything, and legalistically you have fasted. But the purpose of the fast is to understand it from an outward and inward standpoint. And so taqwa is not tangible, it is intangible. But like a body that has no soul, a ritual that has no inner part to it is just a corpse. It's not going to give you anything. Your individual preparation is going to be about being strategic in how you approach your fasting and how you can utilize it as a means for real connection to God. I don't think in an audience like this, it would be something that would be so easy to just give specifics because you're all unique. And so your hearts have different obstacles and inhibitions and things that they're attached to. And so too, they have different strengths and different positives and things that uplift them. You want to be able to have this conversation with teachers in your community who could sit down and orient for you a strategy or enable for you to have a strategy that goes beyond just, I'm going to pray every rak'ah of Salat al-Tarawih, I'm going to stand on the 27th night, and everything is going to be mechanical, because it's not about it being mechanical. I would say definitely read the Quran, but read it with your heart, if you can understand what I'm saying. Recognize that Ramadan is not about empty stomachs, but it's about full hearts. And the process of consuming less is that you're nourishing yourself from other means and mechanisms. And built into your day has to be an opportunity for real reflection and contemplation so you can understand and assess what it is that's really taking place. Taqwa is something specific. The way your stomach tells you when it's hungry, or your throat tells you when it's thirsty, your body is telling you
with signs that there's something deficient. You have to be mindful of this. And imagine how difficult it would be if you just had to know you didn't have enough nutrients in your body, or you didn't have enough water on your body. There wasn't an indication for that in some way. Taqwa is essentially similar in that it's telling you you're about to lie, you're about to gossip, you're about to curse, you're about to mistreat your child, you're about to abuse your wife. But that sign can get deafened through the overt engagement of the dunya. You just feed your physical and feed your physical and feed your physical, and your decisions are just about food and money and the acquisition of physical intimacy. And the deprivation of it is not deprivation, but it serves now as a means to re-foster and re-energize that sense of consciousness. So tawbah is done when you fall into the hole and you have to go back to God and you say, forgive me, I made a mistake. Taqwa is what keeps you from falling into the hole in the first place. And fasting can yield you that. So in your day, which is a long day of fast, you want to plan when are you going to sleep? How will you sleep? How will you pace yourself? What kind of foods are you going to eat? I would say use the opportunity to cut out like greasy, oily foods that are just going to maybe get you through your day, but will make it hard to be attentive. Right? The hadith, we talked about it last night, says, ad-du'a mukhul ibadah, that supplication is the essence of worship. But the word mukh does not mean essence, it means brain. Right? It also means like your bone marrow. It's like the skeletal framework of your being, which alludes to the fact that worship has to have a cerebral component to it. Like you have to have attentiveness in your worship. So if you ever prayed and you don't remember what surah you recited in the first rak'ah, or you don't know if you're on the third rak'ah or the fourth rak'ah, or did you do enough tawaf when you're doing tawaf in Mecca, it's because your mind is not there. But it's not because your mind isn't there because it's not present. There's just all these other distractions in play. Oh, we do? Sorry, I thought that was something. So the last thing I'll say on this, if you can do etikaf, you should do etikaf. It's a forgotten practice that is really important to do. And I think tomorrow and the day after at the messages we're going to talk about preparing for Ramadan. The Prophet utilized solitude as a way not to be away from people, but to be away from distractions. To see that he doesn't really need so much, and it can help him refocus. And I'll tell you, when I've done i'tikaf, literally when I go back into the world, it just feels different. Because for days you're just sitting and all you're consuming is goodness. Hearing Quran, but also not hearing anger. Hearing truth, not hearing anybody lie or backbite. Sleeping in the masjid, not sleeping in places where you might be surrounded, not even by haram, but just by anxiety and worry. And for 10 days, 10 nights, all you consume is good. And then you go out and that world feels different, not because it's different, but you're different. Because you see it through a heart that is now good. And so strategically, don't take a vacation, but you take vacation times to now do i'tikaf. I would say it'd be much better than going and traveling someplace else. So it could give you a different sense of recentering and peace of mind that a lot of us lose out on because we say, well, only the most religious people do i'tikaf, or the sheikh does i'tikaf, or somebody else will do it. No, you do it. Because you're entitled to be with Allah, just like anybody else. It's for you more than anybody else.
Okay, now, a few questions. I don't think it's really because we're short on time. First question is, from one of the sisters saying, Jazakallah so much for speaking on the topic of anti-black racism in the community. That is much needed. Jazakallah for that comment. The MSA here is organizing an anti-Islamic movement in campus. What do you recommend the booth should mainly focus on?
Can you just tell me all the questions?
Okay, so
Maybe we'll just go through all of them really quick.
that's the anti-Islamic campaign on campus. Next question is, how can we help Muslims without community bonding and to strengthen the Imam, events, workshops, talks, we advise. Sometimes our youth feel their parents are stopping them from doing these things that they feel is something that they should do. What advice can you give to our youth and parents in this regard? And how can we or should we reach out to people who are Islamophobic or have anti-Muslim sentiments? Do we need to have an organized way, or is it more important to focus on working on ourselves?
And you want to say something?
Yes, interject, inshallah. We want to just keep the remaining questions to the topic, inshallah. Imam will be speaking, and we'll just go through the schedule really quickly, inshallah. He's speaking the first Ramadan and Cooper's mentioned in his blog as well. We ask that you follow the Shaykh and the Imam throughout the GT. But if we just speak the remaining 2 minutes on the topics that the question is addressed, inshallah.
Sure. So the questions that are on like strategic development and the building of intentional community, I would say to you that what you want to be able to start doing in your masjid, I have no idea how it functions here, but your sheikh, your imam seems like an amazing man, mashallah. And I would say that you want to be able to understand that he can play a role that is even more impactful if you build interdisciplinary groups that allow for him to bring his expertise to the table with other people who have expertise. So where I, from the outside, couldn't tell you how to do certain things in terms of societal development is because I don't know what's around here or what it is that you already do. But for you to have that be a successful conversation, one, you want to have a strategic plan that says in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what is it that we are working towards? What is it that we have as milestones and metrics of our success? If you're looking to engage in conversations on politics, then you need to have people who understand politics at the table. You want to have conversations about media engagement, then you need to have people who understand media at the table, people who understand finance, people who understand investment, if you want to talk about communal growth and financial empowerment, people who understand mental health and social services, if you want to start to take care of people's emotions and really the pain that they're feeling. And all of these people sitting at a table together can yield you something that any one of them by themselves could not yield for you. And until you start to do that, it's going to be the same stuff over and over and over. The Prophet did not tell Abu Bakr radiallahu anh to do everything. He did not tell Umar to do everything. He did not tell Ali to do everything. Osama bin Zayd led an army when he was 18. Think about that. You had young people, old people, black people, brown people, white people. The Prophet even engaged non-Muslims to be a resource for him. But he yielded to his leadership that acknowledged what he was good at and where there were gaps that had to be filled with others. That's how you build an institution with a team. What ends up happening in many spaces, right? Look at the country that I come from. Most Congress people and legislators are elderly white Protestant men. That's just a fact. The policies that are developed are then, they make sense that they're coming from these old white men, right? And if you walked into any meeting, if it had a different population at the table, say instead of all old white men, it was old white women, people would be surprised. Or if it was old black men instead of all white men, people would be surprised. Most universities, corporations, any type of businesses, their trustees, all the people who run the institutions are usually elderly white men. And then the policies reflect those people who make the decisions. If your masjid is run by mostly men who all come from the same cultural background, they're going to build what they have the ability to build. It doesn't mean that what they build is wrong, and it doesn't mean that it builds it right. You have to think about it objectively. It's going to only be what those people can bring to the table. And so if you don't have diversity in those conversations,
the strategies will not be as big as they can be. There has to be a relenting to the idea that how you build it in this space might need to be different. We went to some masjids and visited some spaces that were amazing. This space is amazing too. I can't tell you what's right or wrong or good or bad or do assessment because I don't know. But I'm telling you what's typical in many of these places is too much burden gets put on the shoulder of the religious figure in the community who has to do everything for everybody, which doesn't make any sense. And then it doesn't utilize the resources and talents of the community more broadly. For some of the other questions that are tied to your universities, you can email me. My email address is KL, like my initials, 442 at NYU, like New York University.edu. The other question that I wanted to touch on that I thought was really important was the one about converts. And try to understand this, right? Like the Adhan is called at moments of truth. And that's not from me, that's from our tradition. Converts get treated like garbage in the Muslim community. And I know it. In my community, we get anywhere from 1 to 5 people in a week that just show up wanting to convert. And people are coming to this deen, but many of them leave because when they come and meet Muslims, Muslims don't know how to engage people who convert. The only thing you can give to somebody is what you have to give in the first place. To be Muslim is to not commit a cultural apostasy of some kind. So it's not to Arabize yourself or South Asianize yourself. That's not what it means to be a convert. Nor is it that when someone comes and take their shahada, you give a big takbir and then the next day you don't do anything for them. Ramadan is going to come and go. The day of Eid is going to come. Many of you will celebrate with loved ones and family members, and a lot of converts will be eating in a diner by themselves. Because you will not invite them to your homes. Why? Why will you not? Why are you not thinking about them? You will not let them marry your children. Why? That's racism. It is. You don't have to admit it for it to be true. Books are not written with an understanding of converts reading them. Websites are not written. I'll give you an example. A young woman took her shahada in our community right around Hajj time. She was super excited to celebrate the day of Eid with her brothers and sisters. She went online to see how you celebrate Eid, and she's sitting in my office crying. She said, I found this website, and it told me that I need to go and slaughter a goat, and I don't even know where to buy a goat. Am I supposed to kill this thing in my apartment? I was like, you don't have to kill anything in your house, man. But why would she think differently? You know the number of Muslim converts that I know who don't know that they can pray their prayers in a window of time? Because when a born Muslim takes for granted knowledge that they have and just says to them, you have to pray, here's the website that tells you the times, and they see Dhuhr starts at 1 p.m., Asr is at 5 p.m., they then think if I don't pray it right at the minute it comes in, then I'm just going to hell. And for many, once they convert to Islam, it stops being about God, but it's just about the mechanics and the form. You now have to do this, and you have to do that, and don't do this, and don't do that. And a lot of it is just made up stuff. There's people that I've met who have converted, who are shuyukh, well known, who said for months after they converted, they wouldn't even go into their parents' home because Muslims told them that their parents were now nijis and they couldn't be in their house. There was a young woman who converted that I met in a different part of the United States who was experiencing a lot of mental health issues. She said she converted to Islam. She was African, not African American, and she went into a masjid and she said that the men and women there wouldn't talk to her. When they saw her, they wouldn't greet her, return her salam. They would speak in a different language around her that she couldn't understand. You got to think, right? This is foundational hadith. The Prophet says that when you are two talking, don't talk in such a way in front of a third that they can't understand. That's also about different language. And she said, I started to just feel so ugly. And I started to build body image issues. Because why wouldn't people talk to me unless I was ugly? She built up bulimia and anorexia. She said she would walk into spaces where Muslim men were. They would just stare at the ground. Sometimes they would turn their back on her. She said, is there something wrong with me? And then when the holidays came, she said, nobody invited me to anything. I became so lonely and I became so isolated. She said, I tried to kill myself. And when I wasn't successful, I read online that God doesn't like suicide, so now I'm just waiting to die. Her situation is not a rarity. A woman that I met who came from a Sikh background in the UK told me it took her 8 years to convert. Not because the Quran didn't speak to her. She said she found deep truth in it, but she said it took her 8 years to find Muslims who she actually felt followed the Quran. Not just in terms of prayer and fasting, but in terms of like love and understanding. These people live an entire life prior to the day they convert. And it's hard for them, especially in this age of Islamophobia, where their parents will just outcast them, mock them, ridicule them, believe they're just going through a phase. But you can't tell people about God if you don't know who God is to you. And if your Islam is intertwined into your identity because by default from your culture, you just happen to be Muslim, and all you know about Islam is prayer and fasting and reading Quran, then that's what you're going to give to people. But where do you create a space for their own understanding and growth? We do panels in our community where converts just talk about how difficult it is in engaging people who are born into Islam. And at the end of every one, tears are just shedding. I've had grown men who are 50, 60 years of age from different masjids come up to me and say, we have run the convert program, the dawah program in our masjid for over a decade. And we just realized we have no idea what we're doing. As quickly as people are becoming Muslim, they're leaving because of what it is that we're failing to provide for them. It's the same thing. You just got to show people love and real understanding and recognize that how you engage them will have real deep impact upon them. Allahumma ameen. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت ربنا وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present here and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from any affliction, anxiety, or anguish. Remove from our hearts any fears or inhibitions, and replace them with an ever-increasing boldness to live each day in this world as best as we can. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and mercy, hearts that are filled with compassion and hope, hearts that are filled with love and drawn towards your remembrance. For indeed, in your remembrance do hearts find rest. We ask, Ya Allah, that you bless this community and all those who are in it. We ask, Ya Allah, that you protect them always from any type of harm and give to them and their loved ones only that which is good. We ask, Ya Allah, that through this community you bring benefit to your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, feed your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, clothe your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, give shelter to your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, give hope to your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, be merciful to your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, be generous to your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, give strength to your creation. Through us, Ya Allah, love your creation. And help us to always find a love for ourselves and to go and share that love with all those that are around us. We ask, Ya Allah, that you make us from amongst those who reach the month of Ramadan. We ask, Ya Allah, that you make us from amongst those who benefit from the month of Ramadan. We ask, Ya Allah, that you make us from amongst those who witness and benefit from the night of Qadr. We ask, Ya Allah, that you give us the strength to stand in each and every night of that blessed month so that we might be from amongst those who witness Laylatul Qadr. We ask, Ya Allah, that through Ramadan you increase us in our Islam. We ask, Ya Allah, that through Ramadan you increase us in our Iman. We ask, Ya Allah, that through Ramadan you increase us in our Ihsan. We ask, Ya Allah, that through that blessed month you make us from amongst the most beloved of your servants. And through it, Ya Allah, you help us to aspire only towards that which is good. Give us, Ya Allah, the strength and courage to ask of you to make us the answers to people's prayers. Give us, Ya Allah, the strength and courage to ask of you to remove from our lives anything that distracts us from you in your existence. Give us, Ya Allah, the courage and strength to ask of you to make us from amongst those whose life is dedicated to the pursuit of the world beyond this one. And help us, Ya Allah, to always strive towards that which is good. Forgive us when we make mistakes. Forgive us when we forget. Forgive us when we push other hearts away. Ya Allah, accept our dua. Ya Allah, accept our dua. Ya Allah, accept our dua. Ya Allah, by the barakah of this gathering, accept our dua. Ya Allah, by the presence of the righteous that are here, accept our dua. Ya Allah, by the sincerity of the most sincere that are here, accept our dua. Make the Quran our guide and grant us a deep understanding of it. Make the Sunnah our aspiration, both outward and inward aspects of it. And make our prayer our anchor, granting us the true sweetness that only salah and dua can. Make the best of our deeds the last of our deeds, and let us not leave this world other than in a state that is pleasing to you. Make us, Ya Allah, those who benefit from the upcoming month of Ramadan. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.